Okay guys, so we have the new iPhone 16 Pro Max here, and I've gone with the black titanium model. And this is probably my first black iPhone since the iPhone XS. So over the last few years, I've gone with either the gold or gray iPhones like I did with the iPhone 15 Pro Max, which I got in natural titanium. And I have to say, I think this is a really nice color. It's one of the best ones Apple has put out over the last few years. So it was kind of hard not going with it this time around. But I have to admit that before I decided on getting black for the 16 Pro, I was really close to picking up the new desert titanium color. I do kind of miss having a gold phone like I did with the iPhone 14. For me, I've been going with black for a lot of different things lately, especially with the tech in my office, so I felt pretty good about going with this color for the new iPhone. And I usually go with the Max models because of the bigger battery, and I'm doing a lot more photo editing on my phone as well, so that bigger screen is definitely a plus. And side note, I usually post those pics on Instagram, so say hi if you check them out and I'll be sure to get back to you. But alright, so let's get to the unboxing. So this model of the Pro Max is a 256GB version, which I think is usually the sweet spot for me in terms of storage. Also, fun fact, this is the first time the new iPhones aren't coming with an Apple logo sticker, which has pretty much been a tradition at this point. But I heard you can still get a sticker if you go into the Apple store and ask for one in person. Okay, here it is. And first off, I'll say the color looks a lot lighter than I expected. So just my initial first impression, it reminds me a lot of the graphite color that came with the iPhone 13 Pro a while back. It's maybe just a little darker than that. It does look really nice, don't get me wrong, but I would have preferred more of a jet black version over this shade. This is definitely more like a charcoal color if you ask me. But let's compare it to the natural titanium, which as you can see is more like a silver color with a slight yellowish hue to it. It's like this nice shade that sort of stands out and catches your eye, but is still low key at the same time, if that makes any sense. And just in case if anyone's wondering, here's how the black titanium compares to the space black on the M3 MacBook Pro. With them next to each other, you can definitely tell they're different shades of black. The M3 has sort of a more purplish hue to it, whereas the iPhone is definitely more of a grayish black. But individually, they both look pretty good. It's just when you have them together, you can definitely see that difference. So if you're trying to have the same color for all your Apple devices, I think you're gonna have a little bit of a hard time. As for the rest of the box, there's nothing really interesting, just some paperwork and a USB-C cable. By the way, the move to USB-C in iPhones last year was so clutch, I do not miss the lightning port like at all. Okay, so let's check out some of the things that have changed between the 15 Pro and 16 Pro. And one of the first things you might notice is the new camera control button right here. And let's talk about this button for a second since it is a little interesting. So how Apple explained this is that this is a dedicated button just for your camera that would act differently based on how you pressed it. So you can open the camera and take pictures by pressing on it, or you can swipe your finger over it to control things like the zoom, exposure, and some other settings. In theory, this is supposed to make using the iPhone's camera feel a little bit more like using a DSLR or mirrorless camera, since they usually have their own rings and knobs that you can adjust while taking pictures or video. Like I'm pressing on it right now and it does feel pretty similar to a camera shutter button. It's very clicky. So yeah, this is pretty interesting and I'm looking forward to trying it out, but I'm not totally convinced this is a game changer at all though. Of course, we still have the action button on the other side, which was a new feature added to the iPhone 15 Pro models last year. Then on the front, we still have the same dynamic island at the very top. But one thing you might not notice right away is that the iPhone 16 Pro Max is a little taller and a little wider than the iPhone 15 Pro Max. The 15 Pro has a 6.7-inch screen, and that's been bumped up to 6.9 inches on the 16 Pro. I know, crazy, right? It might be kind of hard to see on camera, but the bezels on the 16 Pro are smaller than the ones on the 15 Pro. Again, this might not be easy to see, but I can definitely notice it when I place them side by side. And if you're wondering how the weight feels in your hands, I would generally say they feel similar, though I think the 16 Pro Max is about 5 to 6 grams heavier than the 15 Pro Max. One thing Apple also mentioned is that the glass is now 50% stronger than before, so that could save you if you end up dropping it on the ground, but you definitely don't know for sure. So like I mentioned before, the 16 Pro Max is slightly larger than the 15 Pro Max. So that means I don't think the case for the 15 will fit on the 16. But that's not gonna stop us from trying. And that doesn't work. Alright, so I do like going without cases most of the time, but I did pick up a black silicone case while I was at the Apple store, so I can show you guys how it looks. But before we put that one on, let's see what happens if we put the case for the 16 on the 15. Yeah, so with this case on, you can definitely see the size difference between the two phones a little bit better, right? I mean, check out that gap right here at the bottom of the case. let's go ahead and take that off and put it on the 16, and we'll see how that looks. And there you have it. I mean, it feels pretty much the same as the silicone case from last year. I'm not too big of a fan of Apple silicone cases, but they do get the job done for the most part. I do think Apple really does need to bring back their leather cases though, but I won't hold my breath on that one. So I think I'm liking the black titanium a little bit more now that I'm spending a little bit more time with it. I mean, it does look pretty nice, especially in this lighting. Oh, and one good thing I want to point out about this year's Pro model iPhones is that the cameras are exactly the same between the standard size Pro and the Max size. So you can pick either one and not feel like you're missing out on anything, which was not the case last year when the 15 Pro Max came with a zoom feature that didn't come on the normal size Pro. So if you prefer the smaller size, you can go with the standard 16 Pro unless you want the bigger screen and the longer battery life, which is personally why I usually go with the Max. Overall, I do think the move from the 15 Pro to the 16 Pro will feel more like an incremental update than anything. So fair warning, you'll probably only feel a major difference if you're coming from an iPhone 13 or 14 model, or one that's older than that. And one other thing to keep in mind is that as of right now, these phones aren't actually complete. That's because there's some DLC on the way with Apple's new AI system, Apple Intelligence, but that won't be out until iOS 18.1, which is supposed to release sometime in the near future, at least that's what Apple says. So until then, I'm gonna go ahead and test this out over the next few weeks and hold off on a bigger review of this phone until that comes out. So go ahead and hit subscribe if you wanna know when that video drops. But all right guys, so that's my first impressions of the iPhone 16 Pro Max in black titanium, which is gonna be my daily driver for a lot of my productivity tasks moving forward. I do wish it came in a darker shade, but I do think this is a good color choice overall. I am interested in hearing how you guys decide on picking a color for your phone though. Like, do you always go with the same one, or does it depend on the mood you're feeling that day? Let me know in the comments. And real quick, you guys might have noticed this Apple water bottle I have right here. They actually had a grand opening for a new Apple store just a few minutes from where I live here in Southern California. And they're giving these out to anyone who came in for the iPhone 16. So sort of cool. It has the Apple logo right here and the location of the store on the back. Not sure if I'll actually use this, but it's nice to have. Okay, let me know what you guys think of the iPhone 16 Pro Max in black titanium. And if you happen to be interested in the iPhone 15 Pro Max instead, check out my video about it here. Okay, catch you next time.